Well, I'm a park ranger. I work for the government in national parks close to this area. I became a park ranger because I'm very interested in the environment, and I've always wanted to do a job that I feel like actually adds something other than just make a living, that actually gives something to the community and does something good for the community. I went along to a couple of the meetings that Vic Roads were running, and I came across an individual guy that actually mentioned that the Rowville Rail was a proposal from way back. I hadn't been aware of it. So from that point on I got myself educated about it, and then obviously it was raised during the process by the consultants, but they were actually talking about the possibility of a line from Glen Waverley to Rowville, but that didn't make sense because it was running through the middle of open space and through parkland, so there was no trip generators, if you like, through that route. So then the discussion sort of moved across to the Wellington Road corridor, and then it was found that it had been talked about way back in 1969. Well, Rowville needs this railway line basically fundamentally for transport choice. At the moment, we've got a couple of good bus services here that were put on over the last sort of 8 to 9 years, but the trouble is they're caught in traffic. They're caught in traffic and it takes you 1 hour and 20 minutes to get to the city. So the first reason we need this railway line is we need a transport choice that doesn't have to compete with congested traffic. That's the first thing. And the Rowville Rail will provide that because it will have its own line. Secondly, we want to play our role in Rowville and in Knox, if you like, in reducing the area's transport greenhouse emissions and pollution levels. And we can really only do that if we've got something that will compete with the car, and the Rowville Rail will do that. And they're the main reasons in the community's eyes as to why we need this. People are just sick to death of being caught in traffic and having no other option. They have to stay in the traffic, and that's the end of it. Full stop. Until the Rowville Rail line is built, that will just continue, and it's only going to get worse because we've got much more intense development happening around the area. Just the other day, Melbourne was again voted as the most livable city in the world. That will not be the case in the next 10 or so years if the government doesn't seriously improve public transport and reduce traffic congestion. We are at that point now where traffic congestion is that bad, we will lose that status. I strongly believe that. Traffic congestion is one of the biggest concerns within our community. So if the Rowville Rail and a number of other lines are completed and they provide transport choice, get people out of their cars, I believe we can sustain our level of livability and sustainability. There's nothing else the governments of the future can do other than invest heavily in heavy mass rail transport. The council, as an organisation, is still heavily supportive of public transport improvements. They run a lot of advocacy programs. They ran one recently where they put signs up on all our major roads pushing for the Rowville Rail and the Knox tram. Those signs are still up at the moment. They often have press releases going out about improvements to public transport and the Rowville Rail. So the council are still, their number one priority project of all major projects is the Rowville Rail. Their number two priority project of all projects is the Knox tram. So, when they've analysed projects from an integrated perspective, the Knox Council have come up with the Rowville Rail as their number one major transport project. So there you go. They've gone through a rigorous process with professional engineers, and they've come up with the Rowville Rail being the number one major transport project of any project that affects Knox. I reckon that's a bonus. I mean, we've got our local council right behind us saying all the good things about a project that we need. My hopes for the next 20 years for the Rowville Rail project is twofold. One is, there's an understanding it's going to take at least another 10 years, in my view, to deliver it because they're not even at the point of detailed design. So I respect that. My hopes is that within 10 years, the Rowville Rail will be built. And my hopes are, and I'm sure the community's hopes are, is that they'll start building it before the metro tunnel's completed and before the upgrades to the Dandenong line are completed, so they can begin works concurrently. So that's my hopes, and I believe that's going to happen. The second part of my hopes is that in the interim, they actually do some significant improvements to the smart bus system on Wellington Road, so that they remove all the traffic impediments, provide the buses with more priority, either by extra lanes or traffic light switching, whatever's required, to reduce that peak hour run from 1 hour and 20 minutes down to less than 1 hour. So short term, that's what I'd like to see. Long term, within 10 years, the Rowville Rail is close to finalisation. Campaigning for the Rowville Rail and the length of time it's taken to date, and will continue to take, has never gotten me down, because as I've said before, it's just the right thing to do. It doesn't get me down because I sort of enjoy it. It's something that's in me. I like campaigning. I like campaigning for things that are the right things to campaign for. So I don't see it as a chore. The other thing is if you look at other projects, like the Eastlink project, it was listed in the Melways as a proposed road for over 30 years. So these things, these big projects, take a long time to develop. Sometimes it takes a long time to get the community on board, to get behind the project. That is happening now with the Rowville Rail. The community are on side, the local members are on side, the council's on side, the planets are aligned. They're fixing the Metro Rail tunnel now, they're building that. They're removing all the grade separations on the Dandenong line and upgrading the signalisation on the line. They're the three projects that need to be undertaken to increase the capacity on the existing system to allow the Rowville Rail to be built. So we're halfway there. We're halfway there. Now the challenge is to get them looking seriously at building the Rowville Rail concurrently while these other projects are happening, so we don't have to wait any longer.